This is what we're here for.
Welcome back to E-Hermes, your electric adventure travel channel. Please remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and hit that bell button to be notified of our upcoming content.
The goal for today's trip is to go to some of the springs in Missouri and try to get some pictures and video of them with snow around them, because this snowstorm that came all the way from Texas to, I think, Maine ultimately, should have left some snow behind in an area that doesn't get snow, and I have not seen very many photographs of the springs with snow around it. So that's the goal. The difficulty is, because the storm was so big and so long, I couldn't get out of Ohio as soon as I wanted to. I'm still in Ohio now. I'm approaching Cincinnati. And I'm afraid that by the time I get there, the snow will melt when it warms up tomorrow. But we're going to give it a try anyhow and see what happens. So this is unfortunate. The Mount Gilead Supercharger, Ohio, Mount Gilead, Ohio. They plowed the driveway. They plowed by the car wash, which I guess is nice. But here where we got back into the Superchargers, they have not plowed. It's kind of drifted. We got in okay. I think we'll get out okay. But the worst thing is the bakery and coffee shop that's here is closed for the day. And all at once the road goes from perfectly clear and wet to this. It's not snowing. They were plowing the berm back there a little ways. And some people don't care. We are pulling into the Florence, Kentucky Supercharger. It is at a minor grocery store. It's about 2:30. I really haven't eaten today except nuts and fruit and chocolate. So I think I'm going to go into the Meyer grocery store and find something to eat while it's charging. In weather like this, they keep a big rag in the car so they can wipe off this part of the car. That's where the radar and some of the sensors are for the autopilot, and if it gets too dirty, it won't work. All right, so we are outside Louisville, Kentucky. They wanted me to go to Beaver Dam, Kentucky, but I would have to sit here for a while. So we're going to go to Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is on the way. Just going to go to every one and charge at the lower state of charge so it charges faster, which is what it does when the battery's more empty. It fills up more quickly. As it gets more full, it slows way down. So we're going to go to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. So we're getting such good charging speeds back at the Louisville, Kentucky station that I decided to stay there a little longer and skip Elizabethtown and come right to Beaver Dam. So that's where we are now. Our next stop is Cuttawa, Kentucky, I believe. And then our last stop is Minor, Missouri, where we will do a full charge because that's our last Supercharger till I don't know when. Either Springfield, Missouri or Rolla, Missouri. Both a long, long ways on a single charge. So earlier today I commented how the Mount Gilead Supercharger station was not well plowed in Ohio. This is the Beaver Dam, Kentucky Supercharger at a service plaza on the Western Kentucky Parkway, I think it's called. And it doesn't really need plowed because there isn't much snow here, but it is nothing but a sheet of ice. I got out and I knew it was icy and I still almost fell. Here we are at the Cuttawa, I think, Kentucky Supercharger. They've had a little bit of freezing rain the last few days. Whole thing was covered in ice. Had to break some ice off when I unhooked it from the holder. So we're coming to an interesting spot up here. It appears as though rather than just crossing the Mississippi River from Kentucky into Missouri, we're actually going to go across the Ohio River first, up into Illinois, then crossing the Mississippi from Illinois into Missouri, right at the confluence of the Ohio into the Mississippi River. Now we are crossing the Ohio River. And now we're crossing the Mississippi River. Here's the official welcome sign. We have arrived at the Minor, Missouri Superchargers. I thought they were at the Drury Inn and Suites, but they are at the El Bracero Mexican restaurant to be exact. So this is going to be a long charge because we are down to 11% and we have to run it all the way to 100%. This is the last Supercharger we will be to for quite some time. We're going to try to charge at some NEMA 1450s while we're by the springs, because there are no other superchargers until you get to Rolla or Springfield. So we're going to be here for a while. I'm going to go have dinner. Then I have about another, I think, hour to my hotel, and we'll pick it up in the morning. We start off today with mixed news. First of all, the car says I have plenty of range to get to Rolla for recharging if I can't get to the campground for some reason. Which leads us to the not so good news. Most of the people staying at my hotel last night were actually locals who apparently cannot get home to their houses because the back roads, the side roads, which is where the campgrounds are impassable. So we're going to see if that has cleared up overnight, and if we can get to the campground, or if we have to head on for other options. All right, so you know what time it is. It's time to see if the campground has power back here. Okay. Well, it says in 8 hours we will be fully charged. This is Big Spring in the Ozark Scenic Riverways. It just bubbles up out of the ground. This is a cave behind it. It only goes back maybe 10 feet. We've got ourselves a little bit of a logistical pickle right here. We saw the beautiful scenery this morning, earlier this morning. It's 11 o'clock now. And the campground charger is doing its thing. It's charging at 30 miles an hour. Perfectly happy with that. The issue is there are 3 or 4 other springs I would like to see with the snow and ice around them. Unfortunately, I don't have the range to get there and back to the campground comfortably. So the next option would be to go park to them and then up to Rolla and charge there and then come back, which would work. But again, by the time I make those stops, I'm minus 1% getting to Rolla. So what I think I'm going to do instead is I think I'm going to go to Rolla first, supercharge all the way, because even though the campground's doing its thing at 30 miles an hour, it takes a while. At, 300 miles an hour to a supercharger, it goes much faster. So fully charge at the supercharger and then hit all those locations on the way back. So I happen to know that the Rolla, Missouri supercharger is at Bandana's Barbecue, and based on prior experience, their food is pretty good. So we will sit there and have our meal for the day, get a full and complete charge, and then go check out a couple more springs on our way back to our campsite. This is Round Spring. I don't know what that other one was called, or if it's all part of the same thing, but this is definitely Round Spring. I think it's all the same thing. I believe that the Round Spring we just saw then flows underneath where we walked and comes out of this pool. Well, we have struck out with 2 of our springs I wanted to go see. This road, this is the good road that takes me to the unnamed road that takes me to Fire Hydrant Spring. This road has not been plowed. It's been driven on once or twice. And if this is the good paved road that leads to a gravel unnamed road, I think we're going to pass on this one. But this is better than the last one, Welch Spring, which it didn't even say on the GPS it was a road. It just said turn right, and it was 1.3 miles down something that looked like maybe a trail, maybe a dirt road in the summer. Couldn't really tell. There were some horse riders on it, and a car or truck, because the horse trailers are up there, had been down it. But I'm not confident this car with these tires on it would have been able to get down the road and back, and it probably would have, but probably isn't good enough. So we're going to bag that one too, and we're going to head next to Alley Spring, which is a more developed area. I'm sure will be plowed. This is Alley Mill at Alley Spring, and the fact that it's been impounded partially, not all of it, some of it still flows beyond over there, kind of gives you a better, I think, appreciation of how much water is constantly coming forth. If I did the math right, and that's a big if, works out to just under 1,000 cubic feet per second. Not sure if you can see it kind of moving up and moving across the pond. But as I said, most of it goes through that mill chase, but not all of it certainly. Here's the bypass. And a fair amount, maybe half, maybe not, comes this way. I'm thinking perhaps more than half comes through here. It would have been much more beneficial to get back to the campsite before dark. These twisty, turny roads that are somewhat snow covered still, and I know it was above freezing today, and a lot of the snow melted and ran onto the road, and now it is back right at or below freezing. So I have to be very careful. My goal was to come in last night and camp overnight. I'm glad I didn't, knowing the condition of the roads out here and the campground roads. Even having done it in the daylight today, redoing it tonight in the dark, I think is going to be a challenge. I don't think I could have done it safely last night without having already done it once during the daylight. We are at our last spring of the trip that I know of, unless I stumble across another one. This is Ha Ha Tonka Spring. And this spring is so wonderful that apparently some wealthy individuals from Kansas City, or St. Louis, I forget which, I think Kansas City, decided to build a castle overlooking it. Didn't work out for them so well. But there's the ruins for it. We'll be going to that next, but first of all, we're going to hike down to the spring. Found this cool cave, but access is prohibited. I know there's a bat disease going around, so even if I were inclined to, which I wouldn't be, as Mrs. E-Hermes will tell you, I am a rule follower. I would not go in there. So the boardwalk I've been walking on that takes you to the spring is closed. Apparently they're working on it. Does look like there's access from the other end, from up on that mountain up there somewhere. Not sure how to get there yet, but if not, this will be the closest we get to Ha Ha Tonka Spring. And then if you remember that castle, it is back here, up there. So some may bubble up from underneath, but I believe most of it comes from that cave right there. This tower that you may have seen in the distance from one of the other videos was the water tower for the estate. They had a pump that pumped the spring water up to here and then gravity fed it to the mansion. And servants' quarters were housed beneath the tanks in these other floors of the tower. The tower did not burn in 1946 when the estate did, but some idiot vandals burned it intentionally in 1976. This is remnants of the carriage house, which caught fire from embers from the main estate back in 1946. Since it is unstable and you're not allowed to go in there to look at it because of that for safety reasons, this would be a great place to fly the drone into. Unfortunately, the drone controller charger melted, had a short in it apparently, and damaged the controller. So until I get that replaced, I do not have a working drone right now. Bummer. While you look over some of the remnants of the castle, I want to say hello to my friends that I met on some hiking trails. Clint and Sherry, I hope you're doing well. I hope you made it up here to the castle. We were all a little bit lost trying to find it, but hopefully you got up here to see it before you had to go home. Now that we've seen our last spring, saw the historic ruins, it is time to head for home. So, let's see what we have here. We're going to stop in Osage Beach, Missouri, which is right here to charge, which is good, it's only 39%. St. Charles, Missouri, Terre Haute, I believe it is, Indiana, Dayton, Mount Gilead, and then we'll be home. All right, our first charging stop is Osage Beach, Missouri. Before we really get going, we're going to stop here and charge the car and get me some food for lunch to charge me up. And then we'll head up towards St. Louis, ultimately. All right, so I made a serious mistake. There are two chargers in St. Charles, Missouri, St. Louis suburb, I guess. One is an older 150 kW facility that seemed very full. There were, I think it's 8 stalls. Every time I looked at, there's 2, 3, 4 available. So probably to sharing a charger. And then there was a newer 12, I think, stall installation a little further east. I didn't look at the charging speeds like I should have. It's one of those urban chargers, 72 or 74 kW. Better than a destination charger, but not really a true supercharger in my opinion. So I'm leaving there, going backwards, I don't know, 3 miles to get to the 150 kW supercharger. Then we'll be on our way to Effingham, Illinois. I should hasten to point out that the car always told me to go to the one that I'm heading for now, that's a little further west, but since it was so crowded and I thought I'd be sharing, I thought I knew better than the car. I did not. So this was an unforced error. Now I'm sharing a cabinet. Although another car is leaving, so I'm going to move over. So I'm not sharing. But there's only 6 at this station. One of them's broken, so we're down to 5. Anytime there's 3 or more of us here, someone's going to be sharing. So I'm going to move now. This guy's leaving. So the car is smarter than me and it knows things I don't. But I will say its software is programmed so that you make fewer stops for longer periods of time. And it has been proven that it's more efficient to make more stops for shorter periods of time, particularly at the lower end of the battery charge, because it charges much faster, regardless of what type station it is. It charges so much faster when the battery's nearly empty that it makes more sense to charge from 10 to 60 than it does from 40 to 80 or 30 to 90. It just goes a lot quicker. Even though it means getting off the highway and making more stops, it still has been proven to be quicker. So, more stops at the low end of the battery charge is the fastest way to do it, but not urban chargers that are only 74 kW. Because that St. Charles, Missouri supercharger was so busy and kind of slow, I got the minimum I could to get to the next one, which was Effingham, Illinois, which I just stopped there for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Enough to get me to Terre Haute, Indiana, where I'm actually going to spend the night. So I'm going to get a charge there. That is at a Meijer grocery store, so I should be able to go in there if they're not closed yet, since it's Sunday night, and get contact solution, which I desperately need. And then I will be going to the Home 2 Inn & Suites for the night. We had a really good charge last night, and even though it was cold at the hotel, it didn't lose that much, so I was able to skip the Indianapolis charger. We're going to stop in the Richmond, Indiana charger. Then I think we'll skip Dayton, Ohio, and go right to Polaris. Stop there, and then I'll probably hit Mount Gilead real quick, just to top off a little bit before I head for home. I have another stop before I go to the house. So.
I made one more quick stop in Mount Gilead, Ohio to top off and get me home. As you can see, by the time I got there, they had the snow pretty much cleared. While you look at a few more photographs of the beauty of big spring and winter, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, hit that like button, and hit that bell button to be notified of our upcoming content. Thank you again.